distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to have the opportunity of speaking at this very important event on an issue of great significance to us as a society, the issue of abuse of women and girls. It's especially gratifying that Her Excellency, the wife of the President, and her organization, the Future Assured Organization, have chosen to shine the light on this issue and use her office to mobilize support against the scourge. Now, this attention is important and must never be allowed to wane. By keeping the limelight on the scenarios of abuse, we put ourselves in a much stronger position to fully appreciate and successfully tackle this shame. It's heartwarming to know that around this time every year, the world itself devotes 16 days from November the 25th, the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, to December the 10th, which is the Human Rights Day, to advocacy and activism against gender-based violence. A few weeks ago, news broke of the death of 26 girls on a boat which was floating in the waters off the coast of Italy. By some indications, many of them, some of them, could be Nigerians. It was, for most of us, heartbreaking news, made even worse by the fact that these were young girls, and they could only just be a sample of the actual number of our girls and women in Nigeria and perhaps all around Africa who are perishing in these tragic circumstances. The President, Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari, directed a comprehensive investigation to, and among other things, to verify the nationalities of the victims and the actual circumstances leading to that tragedy. Relevant government agencies are also working with their international counterparts towards forestalling the recurrence of such an incident. But the question really that arose from that incident is how many more young women are subjected to these kinds of conditions? And what are the circumstances that led to the death of these women? Even if it turns out that only a few of the victims were Nigerians, one life lost is far too many, and yet we're losing large numbers. Those who were lucky to escape death find themselves confronted with a fate that is just as terrible. Life, in some cases, as sex slaves, and in the most inhumane conditions imaginable. Here at home, the dangers are as dire and as real. An endless array of circumstances and instances that are nothing short of abusive. The constant flow of underage boys and girls into urban areas to work in some cases as domestic helps, to usually in middle to high class neighborhoods. Baby factories, I'm sure we've all heard of all of these examples of situations where girls are taken into some form of confinement for purposes of just producing babies. The conscription of children as beggars, the stigmatization of certain classes of women as witches and wizards, the young girls indoctrinated to serve as suicide bombers, women subjected to rape and other forms of sexual abuse, female genital mutilation, oppressive widowhood practices, and the list runs on. This is disturbing. The starting point for our conversation around abuse is that it can indeed be prevented. And that really is an important issue, that we can actually do something about it, and that we don't have to wait until it happens before we take action. While we must ensure that abusers are identified and punished, the greater part of our efforts should go into ensuring that we do all in our power to prevent abuse from happening in the first place, by proactively identifying risk factors and intervening decisively to deal with them before abuse happens. And when we speak of prevention, victims should not be made to be on the defensive, and this is quite important. All too often, women and girls are advised and counseled on how to prevent or avoid rape, what to wear, what not to wear, where to go and where not to go, with little or no emphasis placed on engaging and counseling boys and men about how to treat women and girls. The case for treating women and girls with equality and dignity is a self-evident one. Women account for a significant part of our nation's talent pool. As a matter of fact, we're told that as a matter of ratio, it's probably 50-50. 50% men, 50% women. As do young people also under the age of 18. Nigeria's progress and prosperity, therefore, is greatly affected by our ability to safeguard women and girls. We must never become accustomed to condoning the abuse of the most vulnerable people in our midst, or to turning a blind eye to exploitation. A number of institutions in our society, social institutions, cultural or religious institutions, are sometimes complicit in the perpetuation of these forms of abuse. Now, government's share of the burden of responsibility is clear, especially considering that government has the monopoly of law enforcement, especially regarding gender-based violence. Already, the Rule of Law Advisory Team in the Office of the Vice President is collaborating with relevant agencies and non-governmental organizations working in the area of sexual and gender-based violence in the enhancement of reach and access of their protective services to victims. The team is working in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and, of course, with Future Assured now to set up a national sexual and gender-based violence response team that brings together all relevant line ministries and agencies, including the Federal Ministry of Health, Justice, Education, the Nigeria Police, working closely with states and local governments, as well as community-based networks and civil society organizations to address the various aspects of sexual and gender-based violence. We formed strategic partnerships with relevant stakeholders, local and international, including the British Council, and partners West Africa, Nigeria, all of whose commitments have proven valuable in supporting our efforts to succeed in the war against gender-based violence in Nigeria. We've also established a dedicated desk that deals primarily with providing technical support to states in addressing and coordinating sexual and gender-based violence response. That desk is already supporting the administration of the Federal Capital Territory and is in discussion with stakeholders in a number of pilot states to identify and train service providers to establish strong protocols and operational guidelines for gender-based violence response, and also to raise awareness about gender-based violence and supervise welfare services to ensure that beneficiaries are getting a high quality of service. Law enforcement is, of course, critical to all of the efforts that we're making. The needed legal and policy frameworks are already in place in Nigeria, so we have no question with the laws. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the National Gender Policy, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and at the international level, we have the international instruments promoting women's human rights. What is needed is the judicious implementation of already existing law. What is needed is enforcement. And this requires the active collaboration of the law enforcement agencies, the judiciary, and of course, there's a need for the judiciary also to be trained in gender-based violence concerns. Sometimes there isn't enough understanding of the sorts of harrowing conditions that people go through, especially young girls and young women who have been raped. And it's important for our law enforcement and especially our administration of justice system to be specially trained and to be sensitized to the various difficulties in ascertaining whether crime has been committed against vulnerable women or girls. It's my hope that as deliberations continue over the course of today, all of the critical issues will be exhaustively considered. And I really look forward to some of the results of this, especially, I'm sure a lot of that will enhance the work that we're doing already in the Rule of Law Commission. In your deliberations, I'd want to see some emphasis on the role of men and boys in the war against gender-based violence, the role of community and religious leaders as influencers of norms and practices, the role of citizens as effective mediators and the voice of victims in determining interventions, the need for alliances, collaborations, strengthened institutions, and for additional research that will provide strong evidence base for more informed decisions on sexual and gender-based violence at all levels. It's also my hope that the workshop will end with some commitment, some renewed commitments by all of us and stakeholders to the fight against sexual and gender-based violence and the protection of the rights and dignity of all the women and children of our nation. Once more, I'd like to commend Her Excellency, the wife of the President, and her team at the Future Assured for her critical and selfless intervention in important social causes and issues. I want to say that your approach is the right one. One of the reasons why God gives us an opportunity to serve is that He expects us to speak and act for the voiceless and the defenseless. And you've done this so well. It is now my very special pleasure and privilege to declare this workshop open.